Thank you. Whether you are here live in our studio audience or watching back in your room, thank you for being with us. I am still just barely your cruise host, Jason, and it is All Access Pass. And today, I am joined by another absolute legend on this stage. Do me a favor, Mr. Peter Noone.
Yay! Can I have a go with that album? Bring it up here. Look, I want to shout out.
Bring it up. Come on.
She's trying.
She's trying.
Here we go. Thank you. Oh, you could. Thank you. Can I borrow it for a second?
For 2 seconds.
This is my first LP that I made when I was a kid, 15.
The Best of Herman's Hermits.
I know this strange name for the first album, The Best of Herman's Hermits. But look, this is the look. I'm still wearing the same clothes today.
Same hair.
Same hair and everything, yeah. There you go. Thank you, darling. I'll sign it afterwards. I'll come out and say hello after this interview.
Look at that. We got posters.
Posters.
Good Lord.
Look at that amazing poster.
T-shirts. Oh, my goodness. How many of you, by round of applause, are part of the Noonatics? Who's a Noonatic out there?
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I love this cruise so much. I've done it quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I always meet lots of fun people because we all have one thing in common, that when we were children, we had one thing that we all did, which was music. Yeah. We all were involved in, you had a Beatles record or a Monkees record, and I had a Perry Como record and a Peter and Gordon record that I borrowed from my grandmother. And lots of us have one thing in common, which is a love of music. And I come here and I just met Lulu. And when you come on, and I met Felix Cavaliere, and of course I met Peter Asher and everything. I'm wandering around the ship and I'm meeting loads of people that I know, lots of people here that I know. And it was great to see Lulu. I thought she was going to get off, but her plane was delayed, which is good, probably Virgin. And I met her and I knew a couple of her husbands, and I reminded her that when I was 16, and I tried to date her, and she lived in Glasgow, and that was a long way, big ride for me, 400-mile ride, and I didn't have a car. So I took the train, overnight train, and I went round to her house and I knocked on the door. And she was 15. I was only 16. And I knocked on the door, and her father opened the door in a blood-stained apron with a machete. And I said, I don't think I'm here for that. And he was oh, come on. I didn't understand a word he was saying, but I got in the house, and Lulu told me, he was a butcher. I go, yeah, he looked like a butcher, and kept you safe for over an hour. And he worked at the abattoir around the back. He'd just come home from work and just happened to open the door, and he was a really nice bloke. She was telling, and her little sister, she had a little sister who was this big, and now it's Edwina, and they look like sisters now. You're big sisters, like mum's age, my mum's age. And just kidding. She's my friend. I've known her for 60 years. We bonded over the fact that we've known each other for 60 years, and she still looks like she's 25, which is amazing.
She sounds like it, too. She sounded fabulous.
She was always a great singer, amongst other things. And I'm joking. She's a lovely lady. And I heard, I was dating her for a long time, and then I found out that she'd gone out with Davy Jones, and he'd kissed her. So I said, that's it. I'm never going to speak to her again. It's crazy.
You got to draw the line somewhere.
That's what I mean. But when you come on a cruise ship and it's about oldies music and stuff like that,
Yeah.
we've all got we all got that same connection. You know, I was thinking, I should learn to sew with love and do it in my show and do a Dave Clark 5 song and do a Zombies song and all that, because all these people know that.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody knows that I know I was saying to a guy who was with us, Peter Asher was there and Felix Cavaliere was there, and we're all talking, and people forget that England is a small country. Everybody knew everybody. It was nothing for me to go to dinner in a restaurant and have a couple of the Beatles sitting at the next table. I mean, that was normal stuff. And you know, John Lennon bought me my first adult beverage. I was in Leicester Square, like just 17-year-old boy, nothing to do, looking for girls that I wanted to marry. And
As you do.
yeah, and I was out there looking for you know, and I see John in a car, and everybody knows the car, inconspicuous Rolls Royce with like psychedelic paint on it. So I go, and I know the driver, Terry. He's meeting the man from the motor trade, I think. So I said, "Oh, Terry, how you doing?" You know, and he's from Liverpool, and he said, and we get into. They go into a place called the Ad Lib. And I don't know anything. I still don't know much about anything except music. But I go in with them because I'm an idiot. You know, when you're not invited, you just tag on.
Act like you belong. Act like you belong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I just didn't know what else to do. You know, what shall I do? Shall I stand over here? You know, I don't know. I'm just fresh out of school. And they get in the lift. They press a button and they get in the lift, and like an idiot, I get in the lift with them. And they must have been thinking, how do we get rid of this kid? But they didn't do that because they were nice. John, a really nice guy. So when the lift opens, we're in this nightclub, like this room here. And the people who work there think I'm with them. Because if a lift opens and there's 3 people standing, you've got to think they must know each other, right? I don't know John Lennon. And so they take us and they say, we've got a table give us a booth for 3. You know, the Beatle and these 2 unknown people. So now I'm so stupid that I go and sit down. And I'm sitting there in a booth. I've never been in a booth in my life. I don't know what I'm doing. And the woman comes over and she's dressed like that, Playboy Bunny. You know, so I don't notice anything else in the room except the Playboy Bunny thing going on. And I'm like agog. And she looks at me, and I looked about 13. I was already 17 maybe, but I look 13 by now. And she says, there will be a 2-drink minimum. I don't know what that means. But John says, oh, okay, I'll have 2 Bacardis and he'll have 2 Cokes. And he gets the Bacardis coming. They're these beautiful little bottles, like stolen off an airplane, you know what I mean? And he gives me one of my bottles, one of his Bacardis like that, and I give him a Coke.
A clean trade.
And that we bonded. And people say, you know, and it's really funny because I can remember the records that were being played in see how music is an intense part of my life.
Sure.
It's an intense part of my life. And in the room, they're playing the Shoop Shoop song by Betty. If you wanna shoop shoop, I can't remember how the song goes, but I remember it was the Shoop Shoop song by Betty Everett. And they kept playing these things. And then when I got into the lift to leave, you know, I realized that I outstayed my welcome when no one spoke to me for over an hour.
When you're the odd one out.
Yeah, you know, I'm sitting there. Nice place. You're like a complete idiot. And I get in the lift, and it's Dobie Gray. I'm in with the in crowd. I'm in with the in crowd. And that's kind of the story of my life, really, that I've always found myself in these amazing, unbelievably lucky experiences. I've always walked into, like, I met Elvis, and he punked me.
Elvis punked you?
Punked me.
Oh.
And I didn't. They'd just met the Beatles, and they'd doing English humor with him. So I thought, and I was going to do. I met Tom Parker, and I'm going to interview him for the BBC, and I've never done an interview in my life ever. I'm still lousy at doing interviews because I want to tell your story. You know what I mean? So, and I don't listen very well either. So. I go, and it's me and Barry Whitwam, the drummer, the original drummer in the band, and we walk into this. It's in the Hawaiian village. He's making Paradise Hawaiian style in Hawaii. And we've got a day off in Hawaii. And Colonel Parker lets us meet him in a hut, and it's 6 a.m. We've never, ever been up at 6 a.m. in the morning. But we get there at 6 a.m. because you have to meet Elvis at 6 because the picture starts shooting at 6:30. So he's in that grass hut over there. So we go into this grass hut, and lying on the floor in the like horrible floor of this teepee thing, Hawaiian hut, is like Elvis flat out on the floor like that, with a bottle of Jack Daniels like this. And I'm still an idiot. I'm a year older, but I'm still an idiot. I don't know what to do. I'm looking around like this, and I look to Barry, but he's a bigger idiot than me. He doesn't know even what I don't know. And then suddenly, Elvis walks in, surrounded by like 10 men. And it's his stunt double from the movie. And he's completely punked us. And now I have to ask him questions. I've got a list of questions. And I called my sister. My sister lived in Liverpool. And she worked in a place that had a phone. And I don't know if you know, many people didn't have a phone then. My mum had a phone. My sister didn't have a phone. But she worked at a place. I'd called and I said, I'm going to meet Elvis Presley today. It's time change. And I've got to ask him some questions. And she said, ask him, does he dye his hair? So all through the interview, I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to mention it, but I am looking at his hair all the... When are you coming to England? Stuff like that. See, you're good at this. You're brilliant. I've watched us doing this many times.
We've done this a lot.
And you're really good. And apart from this Louis Armstrong voice that you try to do, but
I'm trying on something new. You understand?
But it's good to see you again, man, and your wife. It's nice to see you. A happy room. Look at this great happy room. All these happy people. And we all kind of know each other by the music, like we all know each other because of our music that we grew up with, I think, like me. I grew up with music from the 40s, so when I met Perry Como, I almost fainted because he was my mum's favorite. And of course, and I told Lulu I did this because her mum's favorite was Perry Como. I said, yeah, but I stupidly told him. And when people say, oh, my mother loved you, I look at them and I go, is she like, how old is your mother? You know what I mean? So, we both have the same experience. So it's all about music, and I've lived this life where I've been constantly nobody works harder than me. And people say, why do you do it? No, how do you do it? Well, how do you do it? And I go, well, I don't know how to do anything else. When I go home, I work on music, and I have a show on Sirius XM, and I work on that, and I do. Oh, look at that! My God, we've got over 11 listeners now, and it's all that, and all my friends are not necessarily in the music business, but they're all in kind of show business or builders or you know what I mean. We're all connected, and when we have lunches. We have these boys' lunches. We talk about the Stones. We don't talk about business. We thought, oh, you've seen Ronnie. Who's going to be the first one to go in the Stones, you know? That's how you go. And I said, all the money's on Keith Richards, but I think he's going to outlive them all. You know, if you meet Keith Richards, he's still exactly the same as when he was 20. He's still... He's always been like that. He probably, hey. I say to myself, this morning I got up and I looked in the mirror and I said, Peter, try to remember, you're not 76 anymore. You're 77. Take it easy.
Far more mature.
Absolutely. But, that was the last Bacardi I ever had, by the way. I didn't really enjoy it, but I had to drink it. And
you have to.
I had to drink it.
You have to drink that one.
And then I got the next round.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had a few. But I still remember the elevator going down. I'm in with the in crowd, Dobie Gray. And I was deliriously happy. I'm deliriously happy now. I'm going to go back to the hotel. My dad made me live in a hotel because he didn't want this kid, going on the road and hanging out. So he chose the hotel that I stayed in. And, they never knew when I was there. Yeah. The hotel don't check it. Oh, we'll check if he's in his room, Mr. Noone. Yeah, right. And then they made me live with my grandmother for a bit. And I don't know if you ever everybody's got a grandmother. I had a grandmother, but my grandparents were completely deaf. Completely deaf. I've got hearing aids now, but they were completely deaf. And they always went to bed at 9 o'clock, exactly 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, the place was silent, so they couldn't hear. I could have a drum kit in the living room. You could have 15 girls at a party, and they never knew. If you cleaned up properly afterwards.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, it's reminiscing. How's your life going? See how bad I am at interviews?
You're the greatest interview of all time for a guy without a voice. I can tell you that right now.
Thank you. I'm living the dream, you know that. Every people are like, well, how are you? I'm living the dream. Look, I'm going to Jamaica and they're putting me on a ship and I'm going to meet lots of people who know me. And some of them will come to one of the 2 concerts and I'll meet Lulu and Felix and Peter Asher and Billy J. Kramer. And I've known Billy J. Kramer for 112 years. And I ask him, I do interview my friends and I say, who did the background vocal on Trains and Boats and Planes? Trains and boats and planes. He goes, I did. I go, bloody hell. It's brilliant. That's not the right thing to, shocked that he was brilliant. He is brilliant.
He's fantastic. He is fantastic.
That's a great record. I might get him to come up and sing it with me sometime. Trains and boats and... I've got to stick with Mrs. Brown. You've got a lovely daughter. And Henry VIII. And there's a kind of hush all over the world. When people say, the flight attendant goes, are you someone famous? I say, well, if I was, you wouldn't need to ask me, would you? Famous people don't need to be asked who they are. He said, well, aren't you like some rock star or something? And they go, no, I'm Nick Nolte.
Buttered sausages.
I changed my voice a bit. Give me another bottle of water.
Is that me?
Yeah, you are a bit like Nick.
me.
You're looking a bit like Nick, actually,
I'm on my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also have a great story, though, about you and the Stones.
Yeah. I've got a lot of good stories about the Stones because whenever you're with the Stones, there is a story. There's always something good. I've got a lot.
You got an unlikely warning.
Yeah, I got a bit drunk. I thought being the best drinker in the world would get you to be friends with Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole, and I already was. And I was in a car with them once, and we were driving in London, and we're driving along the road, and we see not a homeless person, but a drunk who's so drunk he's doing that crab walk across the road like this. And Richard says, oh, look, there's Peter Noone. I'm in the car. So as I got more and more good at drinking,
Talented.
I went to this party in New York, and it was all those, I didn't fit. I didn't fit with the Andy Warhol and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't fit. So I sort of removed myself from the party and went looking for girls. I didn't want to meet Mick or Keith or Andy Warhol or any of their boyfriends. So I got completely drunk, so that I had to get out of the party, and I sat on the stairs in one of those, like, in a hotel, like, hey, look at the stairs like that here, but down the back, and I'm sitting there like feeling very sorry for myself, thinking, I wonder if I'm going to do some pavement pizza on the way back to the hotel. And Keith comes out with Andrew Oldham, but lovely guys. And Keith says to me, hey, watch it. If I find out you've done any drugs, I'm going to find you and I'm going to beat your face in. And I didn't like drugs anyway, but I took heed. Okay, I'm afraid I'd like to keep this face on. And
it's a lovely face.
And it was an act of kindness. When you think about it, it was an act of kindness, because he said, if you're stupid enough to get drunk at a party where you can't even dance with all these pretty girls because you're so drunk, then I'm going to, obviously, your next thing is you're going to start smoking pot and doing all that. He didn't want me doing any of that, even though they were probably doing it themselves.
Which is pretty classic, coming from Keith Richards.
Yeah, but you see, England was this small musical community. We all kind of knew each other.
Sure.
A lot of people liked me. They didn't like my music, but I did like theirs, but they didn't like mine. But they liked me, and it was a kind of culture in those days, and they knew that I was not going to be that guy. We'd go to parties, like the Moody Blues had a house out in the country that was like a den of iniquity. And I'd go there and I'd hang out a little bit, but I always left with a girl. I'd say, oh, they've got girls here, I think I'll take one of those home with me. And then,
It's like being at the market.
It was one of those things. It was one of the additional complementary things.
Perks.
Yes. Perks of the trade.
Perks of the trade.
Exactly. But, I did want to marry all those girls, and I did suggest it.
Suggest it?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Would you like to get married? Would you like to pretend to be married for 12 minutes?
12?
Oh, sorry, it's a family crowd here, a mature audience.
I think they're trying to figure out 12 minutes.
Yeah. They're going, oh, he's much younger than me. What?
Well, as you know, I'll chime in here for a moment. We do like to open it up to the audience to ask questions.
Oh, lovely.
And a few of them came in. Steve from Arlington. We miss Natalie Noone on 60s Gold. Is she coming back ever?
Natalie Noone, isn't that great? That's my daughter. She's now called Natalie Presley. She's a mommy, and she'd made a decision that she was going to quit the music business to be a good mommy.
Yeah.
A 24-hour day. And she's got a 3-year-old son who's brilliant. And she lives about a mile from me and my wife. And we see her every day, and she seems to be really happy. And I hope that by the time he's 15, she can get back into the music business.
Yeah, perfect.
Like I did.
What are you known as? What does your grandchild call you?
Baba.
Baba.
Yeah.
You're a Baba.
I don't know why that's just what I became, Baba. And I don't know what it means, but...
It means granddad.
I think it's... Yeah. I'll take it. I can't remember. I think I call my grandfather Granddad.
Yeah.
Hey, Granddad. Yeah.
Hey, Baba.
Yeah. He wouldn't have answered. But he was deaf anyway. He was deaf.
He was deaf anyway. Yeah, he wouldn't have heard you. Harry and Jackie want to know. Harry and Jackie actually just say, Peter sent me and my wife a 50th anniversary song. Thank you for the memories. We keep it on my phone and listen to it all the time.
Oh, what's
Isn't that cute?
where is she? What was the song I sang?
Back there.
Shout. All right. Well, Mazel Tov. Congratulations. 50 years is good. Do you still
wonderful.
like him?
Yeah. She's traveling with her girlfriend. That tells you all you need to know. Nancy comes to us from Iowa. My boyfriend and I attended your concert in Okoboji. Okoboji?
Lake Okoboji.
Okoboji.
Yeah.
You were kind enough to sign my shirt. On my boyfriend's shirt, you wrote, "Kick me."
On the back.
On the back.
With an arrow.
Yeah, with an arrow.
He didn't know until he got out there. Five people kicked him up the arse. He goes, "What's going on here?" That's good stuff, isn't it?
It is.
It's great knowing that you're just an idiot and that, you know,
You get
God
forgiven
gave me
for anything.
all these opportunities, and I'm going to be very grateful. Every morning when I wake up, I go, "Oh, thank you, God, whoever you are, wherever you are, just for putting me here at the right time," you know. They could have put me here 4 years ago when nobody got a record in the charts,
It's true.
except Taylor Swift.
Well,
She's got 100 records in the top 100.
Dominant. Yeah. Janice comes to us from Montreal. Would you ever consider rejoining the cast of Coronation Street or any other character? Stanley
You
or any
know,
other character?
me and Davy Jones started in Davy Jones from the Monkees. He was a character. He was Ina Sharple's grandson. And I was Len Fairclough, the lead actor in the show. I was his son. And I don't know what happened to Davy, how they got him out of the story, but my parents, I can't remember my mother's name because I always called her Mom in the show.
Yeah, she was Mom.
Yeah, and Dad. But my dad was Len Fairclough and I was Stanley Fairclough. And my parents got divorced and she went to Australia and she took me with her. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I didn't go to Australia, but the character was just written out of the show. I always, where's Stanley? Where's Stanley? Always moved with his mum to America. Oh, to Australia. Oh, why would he go there? Didn't get a choice. His mum said they're going there. She probably had a boyfriend over there.
And onward.
It's another story. Peyton Place.
It's the next chapter. Here's a really cute one. Kila, if I pronounce that appropriately, from the Philippines. Kiala.
Hey, Kiala.
Hey, Kiala. I gave you 5 bookmarks when you performed in the Philippines. We rode in the back of the hotel station wagon, taking you to the airport. It was 65 or 66. Do you have any memory of that?
Ah, yes, I remember it well. See, what is your name, Neela?
Kiala.
Kiala, excuse me, Kiala. Everybody in the Philippines that week was called Nelly. What do you know?
Say
Sorry,
it again,
Kiala.
Kiala. Say it again. You stayed at her friend's hotel.
Really?
Oh. Five bookmarks of
thank
Filipino
you.
costumes.
I took mine home and I gave it to my mum. I hope she still got it because she could read books and I didn't. You know, I would say, you know, I've just finished my first book. Novel. It's a novel and I'm going to get another one tomorrow.
From the book exchange.
Yeah.
Great story, Kiala.
But thank you.
Wonderful
yeah.
memory.
It's probably there at my grandma's house, you know, because when my mum and dad moved to Liverpool, they moved we had lots of books. My father liked all that, like that, you know, like Crime and Punishment and stuff. Oh,
Heavy reading.
Heavy, yeah, heavy. And whinging and whining all through the book. So you know, hey, we got a load of books at home. I'm a book collector. I collect first editions.
Ooh.
You know, signed first editions.
What's the pride? What's the prize that you have? What's your pride?
My prize.
Like, what's your number one book? Like, what's the pride of your collection?
History of the English-Speaking People by Winston Churchill, signed first edition.
Signed first edition.
My wife bought it for me on November the 4th, 1968.
Wow.
Still got the receipt.
Wow. Have you read it?
No, but I found it very quickly. Very quick. I've not touched it, the first edition.
Why
I
would
read
you?
the
Don't
book, of course.
touch it, yeah.
And I got the book on tape because I like the guy's voice who does it. It was November the 4th. I got married on November the 5th, 1968. And November the 4th is memorable because that's when I should have realized how expensive my wife's tastes were. What a nice
fair
gift.
point. Look what you're setting yourself up for. Judy from Michigan, do you ever take a break? You seem to be on the road all the time and have been forever.
Well, no, I don't take a break. And people try to talk me into it. And I go, when I can't do it anymore, and there is always that option, when you're just not able to do stuff. Like I remember my grandfather, he retired. They made him retire on his 65th. I think he worked in a steel mill. And he retired on his 65th birthday. And he went out, my grandmother said, you should try a bit of gardening. So he went out in the garden, and of course it's not easy gardening. And he's like there giving it that drop dead. And I go, well, he dropped dead because he stopped working. He was bored. His life, like mine, is his work. This isn't work. He had a job where you worked. I'm not working. I sit on a plane. I get a dressing room. People got security making sure nobody gets near me. And mostly unsuccessfully, thank you. And this isn't a job. My grandparents worked. If they didn't work, they would have died. And their children wouldn't have been able to eat. So, every day I'm grateful that I have a job that I can still do and that they don't tell me, oh, you're 65, you have to go home now. Yeah. And, in America, they gave me Social Security. I go, what? I'm not even American.
That explains our system in a nutshell, I think.
No, but they were very nice to me. I said, no, I don't want it. I don't want it because I don't think I earned it. And she goes, oh, yeah, you've paid all this money in. So I said, wait a second, I paid all this money, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this system that I didn't even know I was paying. And I said to her, how about we just give me all that money back and we'll call it quits.
Call it even.
And she said, no, wait until you... And she asked me this magic question, which is almost the same question. She goes, how long do you think you're going to live? I said, I'll hit 80 easily. I mean, my dad smoked 3 packets of cigarettes a day and drank Irish whiskey chasers, and he lived to be 87, and none of that killed him. So I figure 80. And she said, well, don't take the money now then. You wait until you... And she gave me all this information, 72, you've got to wait until then they'll give you even more money. And I go, well, I'm going to try and live past 80 so I can catch up.
Keep going.
Yeah. Another reason to go out to work, paying into a system.
Rich and Lisa from Florida. We loved seeing you in Pirates of Penzance.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
In London, to be specific. You also did it on Broadway.
Oh, it was a magical.
Have you thought of doing more musicals?
Oh, I'd love to, but I'm too busy. That was, you have to go to audition. Yeah. And the Pirates of Penzance, I was probably already 36 or something. And it was for a 21-year-old guy called Frederick, who was a tenor. And I'm not even going to show up for that audition, because I'm not anywhere near 21. And I think the only thing that got you the gig was you had to be able to wear the tights. And they helped you sing higher as well.
That gets you there.
Turned you from a baritone into a tenor immediately.
Immediately.
And I got it, and I loved every minute of it because it was the first time in my life. Actually, the first time was in television when I was a kid, where people told me, you stand over there and you listen. And so I finally got this job where I was on stage, and the director was telling me, you go over there and you need motivation to go over to the other side of the stage. I said, can't I just go over there when I feel like it? He goes, no, you need to have a reason. It's called motivation. So I go, okay, well, I didn't have any of that when I was a kid, child star. And so I learned all this stuff. And now, strangely enough, every single job I've ever had in my life, even though it's not really work, every single experience I've had in the show business, I use every day now. I learned how to move. You know, somebody said, I think it's Richard Harris, who said, he was a good friend, Richard Harris, and he goes, if you can use your hands, people will think you're better than you really are. And I go, I think I am better than people think I am without using it. But I started to learn how to, so listen, people, stuff like that. And people think you know what you're doing. But I just follow it's motivation, listen, that's what you would do, right? So so everything that I did in Pirates of Penzance, for the first week, I was so afraid. I had a sword, and I would hold the sword through the whole show. And then the director came and said, any day now you're going to take your hand off that bloody sword. Do something else. It's like a guitar, it's like you hide behind a guitar, yeah.
You've worn a lot of hats, though. You've done Broadway, you've done radio, you're a singer, you've done TV, you've done movies. Do you have a preferred hat of all of those?
I like cruises. I meet lots of fun people. Look at that.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
I like playing to an audience that knows the songs. We started out in a different world where we played the Oasis in Manchester and the Cavern in Liverpool, and we had to have different songs from everybody else because you couldn't exist. There was already a Beatles. And if you notice, all those British invasion bands are all totally different from each other. The Who isn't like the Stones. No. The Stones aren't like the Beatles. Herman's Hermits aren't like the Zombies. The Zombies aren't like all around it goes. So we started off trying to be a comedy act. That's where the Herman and the Hermits came up from, because before that we were Pete Novak and the Heartbeats, and they certainly didn't look like Heartbeats. So Hermits was a better title, and I was doing this Buddy Holly impersonation in a pub. Still got the glasses, and I put these horn-rimmed glasses on, and I'm going, "What little things you say and do?" It's like the best Buddy Holly that I could get, all that stuff, and this guy comes up and says, "What the bloody hell are you doing?" And I look at him like, "You foolish fool. Buddy Holly. Little thing." And he goes, "You don't look like Buddy Holly or sound like Buddy Holly. You look like Sherman from the Bullwinkle Show." And I didn't laugh, I jumped on him. And then I could jump good in those days as well, yeah. So, but it stuck. The band liked the idea, Sherman and the Hermits. And he said, "How about Herman and the Hermits? It's better." "Yeah, all right, Herman and the Hermits." And so then we would do comedy stuff because there were no other bands that were called Herman and the Hermits, or even went there. The Mavericks and the Beatles and the Crickets, all that stuff. So we said, we would complete, and we'd open the show with "My Boy Lollipop." My boy lollipop. And
just to show them how serious you were.
Men in the audience would look at us like this. They'd go, because we were doing something that didn't seem very masculine. I thought you need to have huge nerves. To sing "My Boy Lollipop" at the Cavern. Yeah. Knowing that you're a boy already. And then we'd do Mother-in-Law and Mrs. Brown. Mother-in-law had a partner, and it was Mrs. Brown, "You got a lovely daughter." And nobody got the joke that these 14-year-old boys are singing a song about a mother-in-law. Mother-in-law, mother-in-law. See, they know it.
Yeah, of course they do.
But none of the people at the Cavern liked us doing songs about their mother.
Shocking.
Yeah. So we got with Mrs. Brown, "You got a lovely daughter" right behind it. And someone again today, they go, "How long did it take to record I'm Henry VIII, I Am?" And I said, well, how long is the record? And they thought that was a mean-spirited... I said, well, that's how long it took to record. We did it once.
Yeah.
And Mickey Mouse said the magic word, next. And we started on another song that we didn't know the words to. I wasn't good at memorizing words. I made them up sometimes, like second verse, same as the first. It's not even a verse, it's a chorus. But when we would talk as a band, as we talk to a band, you'd sing the verse, and then you'd do another verse. So I'd say second verse, same as the first, and we'd go on to it could be a Bobby Rydell song, but it always had they always had verse, chorus. So I said second verse, same as the first, because second chorus sounds like nothing rhymes with that, does it? But then it was recorded and it was out. Wait a second. Wait a second.
I didn't mean it.
I'm going to write another verse quickly. And we didn't have an A&R man, so, we were lucky we came in. The three people didn't have an A&R man, and they all made it at the same time. It was the Beatles, the Stones, and Herman's Hermits. And we didn't have to ask somebody, what do you think of this? Is this the single? Is this, should we... Because they would have said, oh, put some strings on that, Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. And you go home, write another verse, and add another bit to it. And they would have taken that magic of just going in the studio and going... Yeah, this is what we've got. What else have you got? Oh, we've got another song. Let's do that one. Okay, next. Hey, Mickey, I've written a song. Listen. Ding, ding, next.
Yeah.
I haven't even started the song yet. He said, the intro's boring.
I was only on the second chord. Candy from Texas, what football team do you support?
Woo! Ooh. It's a tough one. My little grandson is a fan of Mbappe, which is this French African guy called Mbappe. And we watch a lot of soccer. He's 3, and he's already he's got a Manchester United shirt and an Mbappe shirt. And he's big into soccer, which is, for Americans, that's kind of unusual.
It is.
But he knows that when I was a kid, I worked at Old Trafford for Manchester United. But my parents lived in Liverpool. And I would sneakily be a fan of both teams, which is not appropriate, not allowable. It's like being a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Philadelphia Flyers. They don't match. So they're not in the same team type thing.
Just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, really. I know my NHL back to back. I know everything about it.
You do.
Yeah. But anyway, so I worked at Old Trafford, so I had a T-shirt, and people know that people from my generation in Manchester know that I used to work for the team.
Yeah.
I used to clean shoes. And muddy shoes with a thing called dubbing that you had to rub on the toe. Yeah, horrible stuff. And didn't last long, and I got a job selling programs at the Mac. See, I was always a workaholic.
Always.
Yeah. And then I'd sell programs and then newspapers, and then I'd go out in the same van that we got the newspapers delivered in. We would go to gigs. So it was all sort of big melange of all these different operations going on. And, we never stole a nickel. It's unbelievable. We always paid for everything. And we had to, because we'd signed everything on my dad's credit. And he was a little man, but he was very dangerous. And everything we bought on a thing called hire purchase, and we had to make the payments. Otherwise, I wouldn't be cruising right now. Bruising.
We're grateful.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I've had a good day. I got on the ship. I met Lulu. We talked about meeting her dad, and then I met Felix, and we go back a long way. I saw Felix. I went to a show. And it was Sid Bernstein took me to see this new band called the Young Rascals. And I sat at a table, and I have a very good memory for moments in musical time. And they were absolutely brilliant. They were so brilliant. It's like, I was shocked. And at the same table, I was sitting, John Lennon was sitting there, and I knew him by now, and he knew who I was.
Aha.
And Bob Dylan and Captain Beefheart. And Captain Beefheart was more interesting.
Yeah.
Was more talkative than both of them put together. They didn't go, wow, aren't they great? You know,
Yeah.
ain't they great? You know.
That's your Dylan.
Sorry. You wish you could do that with that bass
yeah.
voice of yours.
I wish I could make any sound at all at this point.
Yeah.
Chuck from Minnesota. On The Angels Are Crying, there's a beautiful female voice. Who is that?
It's Natalie when she was 6, I think.
Oh, it's your daughter when she
You know,
was six.
we had these. Kenny Loggins had this phenomenal charity, which was called Unity, which was for people who couldn't feed their children very well. And at the time, this is 30 years ago, maybe more, there weren't hundreds of thousands of people who were homeless. There were just only a few that we, you know, there's always those people who said they were vets and everything, who didn't know what unit they were in when they were vets. And so he set up this charity where people could go and get Christmas presents for their children that the children chose. You know, it wasn't just, here's a gift for your kid. The parents were able to go to this store and they were able to choose a Christmas present and give it to their kid, have it wrapped up. And
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it was a good idea. So we started to raise money. And I had an idea that I would call all my friends and we'd make a CD. And we would sell the CD for $10, but nobody could get paid. No publishers, no managers, nobody would ever earn. When I do charity work, nobody makes a nickel except the charity. So Kenny liked that idea. So
Admirable.
we made this. Oh, I've done it a few times since then, but this was a one-off. And so Kenny G sent me a song. He was a superstar at the time. Kenny G, Kenny Loggins, Michael McDonald, Beach Boys, Olivia Newton-John, all sent me a song, a Christmas song for this CD. So it was like, suddenly we got this amazing, and I thought,
Monsters.
I want a song on it as well. I'm going to do a song on it. So my friend Barry DeVore's on. He had this song called The Angels Are Crying in Heaven Tonight, and we went into his house, recorded it in his little living room, and I sang the lead, and Natalie sang the vocal. And it's called, and it's a great story. You know, it's about children crying in the rain. You know,
You're very popular, I understand. Who was it?
Look at that picture of my grandson. Isn't that gay?
Isn't he precious?
Yeah, I'll shut up. My daughter doesn't want you to see pictures of him. Yeah. So that was my manager, ex-manager. I just fired him.
Calling in the middle of the interview.
Yeah.
You're involved in charity now, though. Aren't you involved with an Alzheimer's charity now? Is that true, or recently?
Yeah, my fans are involved in it. What we did was there's a thing called Facebook Stars, and you give stars, and we make the stars all go to Fisher's Alzheimer's Research in New York, because it seems to be a place that's spending all the money on research.
There we go.
One has to be careful about stuff like that, and they're very, very nice people, you know, and luckily they remembered who I was, and it takes a while, I know. It takes to keep up. Sick mind of mine, you know. But the
ripple.
We're raising a lot of money. You know, people send stars, and I double them. You know, if somebody sends 10 cents of stars, I have to put 10 cents in as well. And probably $100,000 we'll make this year.
It's amazing.
But that's not enough. You know, they need hundreds of millions of dollars. You know what research is. They still haven't got the last problem that we had. You know, research. But moving along.
Yeah, here we are.
We always like to do things that
you do a lot of great work.
Yeah, but it's only using my skill as an entertainer to trying to draw people into that thing. You know, it's. Would you? Can I tell him I'm doing an interview?
Yeah. You can't hear it, but he was live on his watch. We can hear him. Peter, what are you doing?
Yeah. So you know, yeah. He should know where I am.
He should know by now.
And a good manager would know exactly where I was all the time.
That's why he's fired.
Yeah. Well, he didn't know he was fired until I told you I fired him.
Well, he was live. He was live on the watch when you said it. So
I said my ex-manager.
Yeah, you did.
When you rewind it, you'll see.
I know. we got to get you downstairs because we got to get you ready for the show in just
yeah.
coming up quick. What, for anyone in this room that has not seen Peter Noone live, what should they expect of a Herman's Hermit starring Peter Noone show?
Well, tonight is tonight.
It's you.
Hello. We one of the very few.
Hi, Daniel.
How you
How are
doing?
you, my love?
We're going to do
Another one of our most precious cruisers right there. If you don't know Danielle,
there's
she's
quite a
precious.
few people. A few people on the ship have had 10 top 10s.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do all my top 10s, and you know, like I'm going to do. I'm in Something Good, Wonderful World. Listen, people. Must to Avoid, Dandy, Just a Little Bit Better, Silhouettes, The End of the World, Can't Hear My Heartbeat, Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter, Henry VIII, There's a Kind of Hush. Those are all the ones that were top 10, top 20 in America.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten a few, but you know, some things just disappear in the ether. and you know, and I think I'm going to do. I like to do other people's songs as well when they're not on the ship. So I'm going to do Davy Jones. I'll do Daydream Believer because I love this. It's like one of my favorite records. You know, people don't know that, but people like me have favorites that aren't necessarily. It's not my favorite Stones song. Isn't Satisfaction? You know what I mean? But Davy Jones, that Daydream Believer by the Monkees, it's a phenomenally well-made record.
It is.
Everybody's perfect
really is.
on it. So I do the song, and it reminds me because me and Davy had a load of fun. We toured together, and he was from Manchester. He was from a dump end of Manchester. I was from the posh end, you know, with the golf course and all that stuff. Of course, I'm lying again. But. So we knew each other, and when we'd do a tour together, and when I did Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter, he would dress up as a woman, and you can do that. You're allowed to do that, especially, and he would dress up as a woman, knowing that he was not a woman, and he would come out and hit me with a purse and say, "Leave my daughter alone." Which was brilliant, you know. It's just and every time I sing the song, I keep thinking, you know.
Look over your shoulder.
Yeah. So and I've started a new thing. It won't happen tonight because I like to steal purses when I go in the audience and meet people, and I steal their purses. Here, you just have to steal that key.
Just the key card. That's all you need.
Got everything. But you know, and it's kind of the only people who know what I'm doing are me. They know that it's a memory thing from in Davy Jones hit me with, and sometimes it was somebody else's purse with, you know, all kinds of hairbrushes and stuff in there. Boom.
A little weight to it.
So I do Daydream Believer, and because they're all, and when I'm singing these songs, I have a moment, like when I sing I'm Into Something Good, I'm at Kingsway Recording Studio in London in June 1964, and I can see the other hermits, and we're all 16, and we're all laughing, and it's just a great, it's a great, you know, like
wonderful.
old geezer talk there, right, for you. That's what old geezers sound like. And then when I do There's a Kind of Hush, I'm in the studio, and I think it's Abbey Road. It's one of those studios where there's upstairs and downstairs, and the strings are in another room. And John Paul Jones, who was ultimately in Led Zeppelin, he's playing a Fender's Precision Bass live, and he's directing the orchestra with the guitar and his face. And I sing it, and I still see, and I still see him, you know, directing the orchestra. The orchestra is not in the same. If you listen to the record, we're not in time at all. Wrong face.
Unimportant.
Wrong face.
Yeah.
So it isn't important because the record is a record, and you know, if you don't quit while you're ahead, whatever that is. Mickey Most was brilliant. I said, you know, Mickey, we run out of tape. He said, I'll just do a quick fade. I said, what do you mean a quick fade? The whole of the end of the song is missing. Well, go, ah. So, Silhouettes has no ending. It goes, record goes, because we ran out of tape. Buy some more tape.
getting in the way of musical history here.
Exactly.
I absolutely love you, and I love you for being here. I love you for coming up and having fun with us, as always.
I just want to go and shake a few hands before I go.
My friends, Peter Noone!
Thank you, man.